What's up, everyone? It's the Next Day Podcast, episode 173 with Mikel and
Tanyka.
where we have conversations on different topics. So today's episode will be our Black History Month special episode. Tanyka recently did one. Uh, you guys should check that out.
Yeah, it was Harriet Tubman
Okay.
is what we
Yeah.
did.
All right. So should check that out. It's on our listing right now. So I'll just check that out. If you want to check our previous uh episodes that we did the last couple years, it's also there. So we will probably have it in the description.
Mhm.
Um and yeah. So on today's episode, what are we going to be talking about based on Black History Month today?
So this episode is going to be about the Scottsboro Boys.
Mhm.
Um, I'm going to guess, Mikhail, you probably haven't heard about this story. This was, I'll explain kind of where this came from in my mind. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, right, this is it.
Mhm.
I heard about this story back in high school.
Right.
Um, and I was racking my brain about what the story was. Why couldn't I find it again?
Mhm.
And it had to do kind of centered around um To Kill a Mockingbird.
Mhm.
And that's like for me in school. So I
Mhm.
was like, why can't I find this again? So I ended up listening to a podcast
Mhm.
that I
Mhm.
can't remember which podcast it was now because I listened to so many, but I listened to a podcast and they talked about this and I'm like, this is it. It took me only 15 years
Wow.
to, or for 20 or so years to finally get the story back into
Mhm.
my mind. I'm like, this is it.
So
And
so this their story is not really that commercialized, the
not
people
enough.
not.
Probably needs to be more. This feel of like this story is kind of very similar to the Central Park Five. It's
Mhm.
very similar in the sense of these black boys are pinned for something that they didn't do,
Right.
but at a time where it's even more prevalent that this would happen.
Mhm.
So this story, it's very similar to that. And it's
Right.
also very similar in the sense of like if you like saw the movie To Kill a Mockingbird or read the book, there is this storyline.
Mhm.
It's very much reflects in the books and the book and the movie.
Mhm.
I don't want to get into it yet because I don't want to give it away, but there is a very similar story in To Kill a Mockingbird with this real life story. And that's why that connection for me was created in high school when I read To Kill a Mockingbird and we were told about this story. So that's
Mhm.
why, like, I was, what, 15, I think, when I read the book for the first time. And I'm like, so that's why I was trying to remember this story for the longest time. Um, so that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Okay. All
All
right.
right.
Let's get to it.
So, the Scottsboro Boys were 9 black teenagers falsely accused of raping 2 white women aboard a train near Scottsboro, Alabama in 1931. The trials and repeated retrials of the Scottsboro Boys sparked an international uproar and produced 2 landmark U.S. Supreme Court verdicts, even as the defendants were forced to spend years battling the courts and enduring the harsh conditions of the Alabama prison system. So, who were the Scottsboro Boys? So, by the early 1930s, with the nation mired in the Great Depression, many
Mhm.
unemployed Americans would try and hitch rides aboard freight trains to move around the country searching for work. So, many people would do this, black, white, whatever. Everyone was trying to kind of do this. Men, women, didn't matter.
Mm. So this was a long time ago, so, like, in the
Yes,
30s, I believe.
the
Okay.
30s, yeah, that's when the
Alright.
Depression happened was
Uh,
from
uh,
1930 to, 1940, around
mm,
there. So on March 25th, 1931, after a fight broke out on a Southern Railroad freight train in Jackson County, Alabama, police arrested 9 black youths ranging in age from 13 to 19 on
mhm,
a minor charge. But when deputies questioned 2 white women, their names were Ruby Bates and Victoria Price, they accused the boys of raping them while on board the train.
mm,
Um, I do want to say this here just in case it's not mentioned, and this was said on the podcast that I listened to. I wish I could remember which one it was, but one of them like well-known true crime podcasts.
mhm,
Um, there was also 2 other boys. So the reason that these boys were arrested
mhm,
was because they got into a fight with 2 other white boys.
mhm, mhm,
And those white boys were basically saying, oh, they started the fight when actually they did. And then they kind of, whether they started planting the seed in these women's ears to be like, oh, say they raped you,
mhm.
or they kind of backed up what these women said,
Right.
whichever way it goes, you have potentially 4 white people, especially women, claiming that these 9 black boys, let's
Mm,
remember some of them were 13,
mhm,
were being accused of raping these 2 women.
mm, mm,
Um, so only 4 of them had known each other before they were arrested. As news spread of the alleged rape, a highly inflammatory charge given the Jim Crow laws in the South, an
right.
angry white mob surrounded the jail, leading the local sheriff to call the Alabama National Guard to prevent a lynching.
Mhm.
Because, again, we've talked about that. Like, that's what would happen, right?
Yeah.
Where I can't remember, I think there was a case that we talked about, whether I think it was last year,
Mhm,
where that happened, where like people were like trying to get the prisoner and in order to lynch him. And like, this is what would happen. And I think that particular case was, I think, even like 20 or so years later. So that's like something that was still going on in the South. Like it was perfectly normal for that to happen.
mm,
Um, so the initial trials and the appeals, which ran from 1931 to 32.
mhm,
So in the first set of trials in April 1931, an all white, all male jury, again, not a jury of their peers,
mm.
but black people were not able to be on a jury trial.
Yeah, 'cause we didn't this is before the civil rights, right?
Yep. We
Yeah.
weren't, I mean, women at this time were barely, well, I don't even think women were even allowed to be on a jury trial at this time.
Yeah, I think it was probably all men at this
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think women were allowed on a jury until at least 30 years after this,
Can
if
imagine.
that.
I can imagine how those boys feel at the time.
Right.
You know, the eyes staring at them and, you know.
And this is why, like, this is what would happen. Why
Mhm,
these black children, let's be real, or even men, just, grown ass adults,
mhm,
black people in general, would be usually found guilty of these things, even if there's no, evidence to say otherwise.
mhm,
They
mhm.
would still get found guilty because, well, they're black, I'm white. Like that's what would happen. Um, so yeah, so the all male jury quickly convicted the Scottsboro boys and sentenced 8 of them to death. Let's
Wow.
remember some of these, like I don't know when this would have changed. I think again it's gonna be many years later. But many of these boys are underage.
So wait, they sentenced him to death or
To
they got
death, like death penalty.
oh, they got the death penalty?
Yes, because in Alabama, I'm pretty sure,
Oh,
I don't know if it's still the case now, but I'm pretty sure Alabama still has the death penalty. It's whether or not they will actually use it. Like, for example,
Mm,
like, California has it, but they've stalled on the death penalties, I think, in the last 5 years or so.
mhm,
So they
right.
haven't actually done it. There's plenty of states that actually do not, even though they have the death penalty, don't actually use it.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
I think really and truly the only states that really will, without question, is Florida and Texas,
Mm,
in today's world. Because
yeah,
it's a lot of money. It's a lot of taxpayers' money
yeah.
to actually go through with a death penalty.
Do we have the death penalty in Canada?
No, we don't.
We don't.
You
Okay.
used to, but
Okay.
it's been many, 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 many decades. Right?
Interesting.
Many, many, like, more like over 100 years now. But
Mm,
yes,
then-
we've had the death penalty here, but
I
just
think
not anymore.
I think I think there's reasons to to have it. I think there's reasons to have it. To be honest, but there's a couple.
It
There's a
depends.
couple.
It's case by case basis. Because here's the thing, like, we could talk
Uh,
the death penalty till we're blue in the face, but
yeah, yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
problem is with the death penalty is what if you
Mhm.
are sentencing someone to death, which I've seen that happen. I've talked about, one particular case,
Yeah.
where someone was, again, it was Texas, was
Mhm,
sentenced to death.
mhm.
He probably did not commit the crime,
Yeah.
and that's the problem, and again, that's a black man. It's a black man accused of killing a white woman
Mm,
because he was having an affair with this woman, but she was involved with a police officer. I'm just saying allegedly. It's
mhm.
alleged that maybe it was the fiancé cop who would have killed her because
Right.
she had an affair with this black man
Right.
that she was working with.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, so
so
well, sorry for getting a little bit off topic.
yeah, no, it's
Yeah, yeah. For like, I'm what I mean about like the death penalty. It's just like basically, I feel like it should be used for like these like three crimes. I believe I'm when I say this: pedophiles,
mm,
murderers,
mhm.
well, extreme murderers, like the
But again, like, where do you draw the line? Like, pedophilia, I'm with you.
yeah,
I'm with you on that.
yeah,
Honest to God, I don't care what you did or how you did it or
mhm, mhm,
how many times you did it. You did it, I think you should be put to death. That's
yeah,
that's where I sit. Um, but if
and
we can't
people.
do that, put them under the prison, I'm good with that too.
Yeah, people do argue about, like, rapists, but, like, like
Um, I think it's different for me, and follow me here.
mhm.
With
Yeah.
rape of, just say, an adult person,
Mhm,
it's a little different for me because for someone to do that, yes, they could be sick in the head, but
mhm,
it's also about control.
mhm,
People, especially men who sexually assaults women, especially, it's all about control. It's not about the act itself. It's
mhm,
control.
mhm,
For pedophiles, it's not about control. It's about the fact that and I hate I'm saying this is coming out of my mouth right now. It's about the fact that they are sexually attracted to children.
mhm,
That is sick.
mhm.
That's sick. And yes, they are mentally ill,
Yeah.
but I don't care.
Mhm,
You they're not going to get better.
mhm.
Again, I don't have faith that they
Yeah,
can be reformed.
yeah.
So
I agree.
maybe we could just get rid of them. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I agree.
Um,
I agree.
and yeah, so like that, like
Mhm.
I was listening, okay, we're going off topic again, but I
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
listening to a
Yeah.
podcast yesterday and I've heard about this story before, but it's about this girl who may or may not have unalived herself, although I think there's a lot of evidence to the contrary of that.
Mhm,
And she was involved with a cop because she was like, I think the States has this program where people can be kind of have like a schooling within the um police force without
mhm,
actually having to go to school, or they can have that alongside going to school to be a police officer. It's
Mm,
called, Explorers, and it's a very great idea, but the problem with this program
right.
is officers are taking advantage of minors being involved in this
Mm,
because it basically goes from ages, I think, 12 to 20.
right.
So this one particular girl got involved with one of the people who was involved in this program, who was a
Mhm.
cop, actually brothers, twin brothers. Okay, this is sick.
Mhm.
And so one of them started having sex with her, if you want to call it that, at 15.
Mhm. Mhm.
She's a
You're like,
minor.
yeah.
And then she
Yeah.
got pregnant like years down the road. And he's married with kids.
Mhm.
Like it's sick. And
Yeah.
it's things like that.
Yeah.
Whether she did unalive herself and you're the reason
Mhm.
she did it, or
Mhm.
you are the
Mhm.
reason she's dead, like you killed her, you're sick. Because, like, how are you attracted to someone in that way when they're a
Right.
child?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I agree.
I don't have any qualms saying this now. I'm not gonna obviously say the person's name, but
Mhm.
I was that 15-year-old girl
Mhm.
who got involved with an older man who thought it was okay to do that.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I was a little older and I'm like, "Wait a second." You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I called him
Mm.
out on it. I was like, maybe it was about 5 or so years later, and I called him out on it. It breaks my heart with this particular girl where
Mhm.
she didn't even get a chance to finally have her brain connect and be like, "What the hell did this person do to me?"
Mhm.
And it's sad. So
Right.
people like that need to be put under the jail.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I agree. I
um,
100%. Yeah. Go ahead.
so yes, they were 8 of them were put to death. And the other thing I was gonna say was most of these boys are minors,
Uh-huh.
that I'm gonna assume are minors,
13 range from
13
13.
to
Mhm.
19.
Yeah.
Obviously 18, you're an adult, right?
Mhm.
But it's hard to wrap your mind around that because in today's world in the States, if you are 17 at the time you committed the crime,
Mhm.
you can't be put to death. You get life. Like,
Mhm.
because I guess morality would say, "Maybe we shouldn't do that." You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But, again,
Yeah.
they're still not gonna put people to death who were accused of raping somebody, that's usually
Mhm.
for murder. So, yeah, the
Mhm.
30s, let me tell you. The trial of the youngest, so 13-year-old Leroy Wright, ended in a hung jury when one juror favored life imprisonment rather than death.
Mhm.
Okay, a mistrial was declared, and Leroy Wright would remain in prison until 1937, awaiting the final verdict on his co-defendants. At this point, the International Labor Defense, the ILD, the legal wing of the American Communist Party, took on the boys' case, seeing its potential to galvanize public opinion against racism.
Mhm.
That June, the court granted the boys a stay of execution pending an appeal to the Alabama Supreme Court. The ILD spearheaded a national campaign to help free the 9 young men, including rallies, speeches, parades, and demonstrations. Letters streamed in from people, communists and non communists, white and black, protesting the guilty verdicts. But
Mhm.
in March 1932, the Alabama Supreme Court upheld the convictions of 7 of the defendants. It granted Williams a new trial as he was a minor at the time of his conviction. So we're going to move on to Powell versus Alabama. So it was one of the boys.
Mhm.
In November 1932, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Powell versus Alabama that the Scottsboro defendants had been denied the right to counsel, which violated their right to due process under the 14th Amendment. The Supreme Court overturned the Alabama verdicts, setting an important legal precedent for enforcing the right of Black Americans in adequate counsel and reprimanded the cases to the lower courts. The
Mhm.
second round of trials began in the circuit court in I think it's Decatur, Alabama.
Mhm.
which is 50 miles west of Scottsboro. So that, in a sense, would be kind of like a change of venue under Judge James Horton. One of the boys' accusers, Ruby Bates, recanted her initial testimony and agreed to testify for the defense. So something you just didn't see. So
Right.
good for her that she recanted at least. But even with her revised testimony and evidence from the initial medical examination of the women that refuted the rape charge, so basically saying there's no sign that there was a rape, maybe there's also like no sign that there was any sexual contact. Like they
Hmm.
didn't actually have sex with anybody. Because again, you can be sexually assaulted without scarring or anything like that. Right, because that's what usually doctors are looking for, signs of that,
Right.
um, like
But
scar tissue or
but
whatever.
was it but was it like that back then? Like in the
Yeah, it would
30s?
have been the same way because at the end of
Mhm.
the day,
Okay.
like, if you're getting
It's
hurt in that way, which is usually not
yeah.
in the normal sense, right?
Mm.
Um, they would look for scar tissue, but we've learned since then that, you know, you can be sexually assaulted
Mhm.
without having scar tissue,
Mm.
right? Just think of it in this sense. A
Wow.
woman can, in your mind, quote unquote, give consent, but really she's only doing that to survive in a sense. But that doesn't take away from the fact that she was sexually assaulted, right? So that's where, like, you know, you have to kind of look beyond. But I will, though, say in this case, these two women, I mean, like I said, this is false. These women were not sexually assaulted by any of these men, and there's no sign that they were sexually involved with anybody. Like, if they're looking for, like, semen or signs
Mhm.
that they had sex with, consensually with somebody, there's no signs of that here.
Wow. So
Um
consent laws was so age of consent laws in the United States were permanently created and raised during the 19th and early 20th centuries, with most states increasing the minimum age to between 16 and 18 by 1920.
mhm.
Before this, many states had ages consent as low as 7 to 12 years old.
Jeez. Well, times have changed, right? Um, over time, but again, the age of consent and providing consent,
Mhm.
as we know, is two separate things.
Mhm.
An adult can not give consent to
Right.
something or take consent away. That's another thing. Like, with the experiences that I've dealt with, I've had to wrap my mind around that. It's like, okay, yeah, I may have given consent in this situation, but then I took it away and that
Mhm.
wasn't respected. So that's a different thing. But with the age of consent, yes, that changes depending on,
Mhm.
you know, where you are in the States.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, no, like, for example, like what I went through, age of consent here in Canada, 16. Um,
Still, is it still is? Still around there, right?
believe so. Believe
Yeah.
it's still 16. It's not something I've really paid attention to lately, but pretty sure
Oh,
it's
I
16
think
still.
yeah, I think we talked about a lot of countries having different ages, like
Yes, different
in
ages, but even like in
Japan.
the
Yeah,
states, like each state can have, like Chicago, for example,
yeah,
it's
states. Yeah,
17,
yeah.
right?
Japan. I remember I we talked about Japan. Japan had a like at a very young age. I believe it was either 11 or 12, but they changed it back to 16 like a couple years ago. So
Yeah.
uh,
But
ch-
again, it's
changed it
like,
to 16. Yeah.
but it still doesn't take the age of consent thing always
Mhm.
threw me off a little bit because
Yeah.
even with age of consent, you still can't legally have sex with a minor, you could still be charged criminally for
Yes, but
having sex with
it's
someone under the age of 18. You know what I
you
mean?
yeah, well, yes, you can't the thing is you can't be like, you can't, touch or, do some
You
yeah,
can't be involved
yeah,
with a
so
16,
yeah, yeah,
17-year-old person or under that.
yeah.
Um, and because like, I mean, I'm opening up a little bit here, but again, like, I'm not giving too much details, I'm not giving
Mhm,
names or
mhm,
anything. But
mhm,
I remember my situation with that person who I will just say was in their 20s when I was 15.
mhm,
He literally, when I turned 16, is like, "Oh, now you're 16. You've reached the age of consent." Like, he was waiting for that age of consent to
mhm,
happen, and at 16, I'm like, "Okay, yeah, yeah, I'm 16 now, I can make my own decisions," but now, at 34, I'm just like, "What the hell?" Like, you
mhm,
groomed me, and
mhm,
it's something that I've had to deal with and wrap my mind around. But yeah, like it's messed up,
yeah,
right? Because
yeah,
I have to deal with the aftermath of you as an adult getting
mhm,
involved with me.
mhm,
You know what I mean?
mhm,
And again, like I think my breaking point with him, because again, I knew him up until early 20s.
mhm,
My breaking point was when he was telling me at the age he was at then, which again is still older than me, was still getting involved with the people who were currently going to our high school.
mhm,
At that point, we'll call it he's about 10 years older than me. At that point, he would have been like 20 years older than anyone he was getting involved with. And it was at that point, I'm like, oh, you're disgusting. And I said it to him. I'm like, you're a goddamn predator. Don't talk to me, lose my number, don't ever talk to me again. I never spoke to him again. But what I really probably should have done was gotten his ass Me Too'd, but Me Too wasn't a thing back then. And I don't know where he is now. Probably still being a predator to somebody. But that's what I mean. It's like this Soul 16 thing, fine,
mhm,
cool. But it's like at that age,
mhm.
no one should be getting involved with anyone under the age of 18
Do you
when you
believe
are over the age of 18.
do you believe that a lot of countries should raise it a little bit higher?
I,
Or
but here's the thing with age of consent. The reason that is in place is for legal purposes only. It's in place because that is the age of which you can get emancipated.
mm,
So you are responsible for yourself.
mhm,
But just because someone could potentially be emancipated, that then does not mean you as an adult can get involved with that 16-year-old
mhm,
who is responsible for themselves. But
right,
that's why that's in place.
right,
So I don't want to necessarily say take that away because there are people who maybe need to do that for safety reasons or whatever it is.
mhm,
I don't want to take that away, but then it doesn't mean that predators, like I think the biggest thing is educate yourself. If you are getting yourself involved with someone who's older than you, especially if you're still a teenager or like in high school or whatever, um, educate yourself and be like so careful of who you're letting into your world because those people are going to take advantage of you
right. I agree. Yeah,
because
no,
they know they can.
yeah, yeah,
And once you give that part of yourself to that person, which was another part of that story, that podcast I listened to just
mhm,
yesterday
mhm,
about
mhm,
this girl who got involved with a cop.
Mhm.
Once you give yourself to that person, like you know, you let that person, quote unquote, take your virginity,
Mhm.
they have a hold on you that's is hard to break, which is the case with any woman who gives that to another man, whether they're your age or not, but they know how to take that and use it to their advantage. Um, so yeah, like when that came up, I'm like, I know exactly how that feels. And it sucks. But
Mhm.
yeah, you gotta just women, especially young girls, we gotta be so freaking careful of
Yeah,
who we allow in our lives.
that's true. That's true.
But
Yeah. Yep.
let's get back to this.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, even with her revised testimony and evidence from the initial medical examination of the women that refuted the rape charge, another all-white jury convicted the first defendant, Patterson, and recommended the death penalty. I'm sure again.
Mhm.
Having reviewed the evidence and met privately with one of the medical examiners, Judge Horton suspended the death sentence and granted Patterson a new trial. I think that's pretty friggin' unprecedented.
Mm.
The judge would be rewarded for this brave action by losing his bid for re-election the following year. But thank you for your service.
Mhm.
um, Prosecutors got the cases in front of a more sympathetic judge. And well, sympathetic for who? Sympathetic for the quote unquote victims or sympathetic for the quote unquote accusers?
Yeah.
But we'll guess we'll find out where the sympathy went.
Mhm.
Um, and both Patterson and Norris were retried, convicted, and sentenced to death in late 1933. So sympathetic to the quote unquote victims. With prominent defense attorney Samuel Lebowitz arguing the case for the ILD, the Alabama Supreme Court unanimously denied the defense's motion for new trials, and the case headed for a second hearing in front of the U.S. Supreme Court.
Mm.
So now Norris versus Alabama. In January 1935, the Supreme Court again overturned the guilty verdicts, ruling in Norris versus Alabama that the sympathetic exclusion of blacks on Jackson Country jury rules denied a fair trial to the defendants. Yeah, and suggesting that the lower courts review Patterson's case as well. The second landmark decision in the Scottsboro Boys case would help integrate future juries across the nation. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, and other civil rights groups joined the ILD that year to form the Scottsboro Defense Committee, which reorganized the defense effort for the next set of trials. Early 1936, Patterson was convicted for a fourth time but sentenced to 75 years in prison. The day after the verdict, Ozzie Powell was shot in the head. So this is one of the accuser slash victims, let's be real. So he was shot in the head after attacking a deputy sheriff with a knife. Both men
Um,
survived. So the caught or the deputy sheriff and then Powell, they both survived. After the Alabama Supreme Court upheld Patterson's conviction in June and Norris's third trial ended in another death sentence, Andy Wright and Weems were both convicted of rape and sentenced to long prison terms as well. Through negotiations with the defense, prosecutors agreed to drop rape charges against Powell, but he was convicted of assaulting the deputy sheriff and sentenced to 20 years.
mm.
Which, I mean, he did do that. He did do that part, which isn't great.
Mm.
They also dropped rape charges against the four remaining defendants: Montgomery, um, Williams, and Leroy Wright, and all four were released. Alabama Governor Bibb Graves commuted Norris's sentence to life imprisonment in 1938 and denied pardon applications by all five convicted defendants that same year.
Mm.
So their legacy. Alabama officials eventually agreed to let four of the convicted Scottsboro boys, so that was Weems, Andy Wright, Norris, and Powell, out on parole. After escaping from prison in 1948, Patterson was picked up in Detroit by the FBI, but the Michigan governor refused Alabama's efforts to extradite him. Convicted of manslaughter after a barrel in 1951,
Mhm, mhm,
Patterson died of cancer in 1952.
mhm,
So his life was pretty much taken away from him. The trials of the Scottsboro Boys, the two Supreme Court verdicts they produced, and the international uproar over their treatment helped fuel the rise of the civil rights movement later in the 20th century and left a lasting imprint on the nation's legal and cultural landscape. So, this is when I'm bringing in someone that I mentioned in the beginning of the episode. That's Harper Lee, who is the author of To Kill a Mockingbird. So let's see where she comes in on all this. So, author Harper Lee reportedly drew on the boys' experience when she wrote her classic novel, To Kill a Mockingbird. And over the years, the case has inspired numerous other books, songs, feature films, documentaries, and even a Broadway musical. Clarence Norris, who received a pardon from Governor George Wallace of Alabama in 1976, would outlive all of the other Scottsboro boys, dying in 1989 at the age of 76. In 2013, the Alabama Board of Pardons and Paroles voted unanimously to issue pardons to Patterson, Weems, and Andy Wright, bringing a long overdue end to one of the most notorious cases of racial injustice in U.S. history. And that's the Scottsboro Boys, which, again, it's great that they get these pardons once they die, but it's like,
mhm,
where was that when they were alive? Like, especially
mhm,
because, like, in this case, like, this didn't, like, none of this happened.
mhm,
And I'll kind of just say that I don't think if you want to read To Kill a Mockingbird and you haven't read it yet, just skip ahead, like maybe,
mhm,
10, 30 seconds. But the story for this in the book was about one black man who was accused of raping another white woman. Um, and if I'm correct, but I could be wrong, it's been so long since I read the book. But I think like, it was actually consensual, but because he was black and someone found out, she accused him of rape. But it actually was consensual, but I can't remember all those details, but it was, um so that's basically, like, where that story kinda came in, and Scout's father, Atticus Finch, was the lawyer for the defendant, but yeah, that's why, like, this story and then To Kill a Mockingbird kind of came together for me because 'cause I'm like, I think it was I'll take her name out. I don't know if you'll remember her, but I think it was because I think I read To Kill a Mockingbird in grade 10, so it would have
mhm.
been Miss who was my
Oh,
English
I
teacher.
remember. Yeah, I remember her. Yeah.
Yeah, so she was the one that brought up this real life story, the Scottsboro Boys,
Mhm,
alongside To Kill a Mockingbird, and that's why I was, like, trying to remember for the life of me what case this was, and it wasn't until I listened to that podcast. I feel it might have been either it was Crime Junkie or the last podcast on the left. It might have been that too. Um, but whichever one it was, that's I'm like, "That's the one. This is it."
mhm,
And I added it, like, after that to the list and said, "I really wanna do this because it's important," and it also rings very similar to, like I said, the Central Park 5, um, but, like, we've heard the Central Park 5 one with the Netflix movie or series that came out a little while
mhm.
back. We've
Yeah, I live in the series, yeah. So
Yeah,
I watched it, I
me
was
too.
I was upset by it
And I
and
was very,
frustrated.
very mad.
Yeah, it was very frustrating, limited series for me.
I'll probably do it in the future again. Maybe we can do it next year.
Mhm.
Um,
You didn't finish it? You didn't.
no, I mean, like, do that case on the podcast next year,
Mhm.
maybe.
Oh, okay.
Um, because I think, again, they had a uphill battle
Mhm.
to have their names, um, exonerated as well for something that they did not do.
Right.
And even when, like, the quote unquote "6th boy" came forward or, came to light for them, they
Mhm.
still wanted to find a way to work the other 5 into the mix.
Mhm.
And it's
Mhm.
like, no, it was one person. It
Mm.
was one person. It was never 6 people, it was one person.
Wow.
Um, but right now it's like for many, many reasons, like, I wanna talk about it,
Mhm.
but I also know I'm gonna also rage out about, the, president's views on that case as well, and I'm not in the mood to talk about him either, so right now,
Yep.
we'll talk about we have more to say about him on our bonus
Mhm. Mhm.
episode
Yeah. Yeah.
because I don't know how much you've been keeping up with Minneapolis lately.
Oh, yeah, I have. I
Yeah.
have given up with that, so, other things and yeah. And yeah, this is our, Black History Month, special. I think this is sorry, not think, but this is the 2nd episode of our Black History Month episode.
Mhm.
Um, if you wanna check our first one, uh, go check it out. It's available right now. Also, if you wanna check the ones that we did the last couple years, it's also available on, on Apple and, Spotify, also YouTube, so go check those out if you are interested in our Black History Month series. So, so that's it for episode 173. Um, that's basically it. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I realize that I said we'll talk about it in our bonus episode. That's
Mhm.
already happened, but anyways, it is what
Yeah.
it is.
Okay.
But we'll be back next week with another episode for Black History Month.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, we'll have our Through Topic Monday episodes as well.
All right.
But yeah, that's it for us.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Peace,
Bye,
guys.
everybody. If you liked what you heard with our podcast, you can head on over to our website, which is solo.to/next take podcast. There you can get any of the links to any of our social media, which is Facebook, Instagram at Next Take Podcast, and Twitter, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Next Take Pod. You can also find links to our Reddit page and many other things, I'm sure. Can't remember all the top of my head. You can also email us at mikeltanyka@gmail.com. There you can send us any inquiries that you have, any questions, or also any episode ideas. And if you do have episode ideas, just make sure you put in the subject line episode ideas, and we'll add it to our list. If you also liked us, you can like us, rate us, follow us on any of your favorite podcast apps. You can rate us, however, on Spotify and Apple Podcast. We would greatly appreciate that. And we'll also move forward and share or spot a light on those who give us 5-star ratings in the future. That is it for us. We'll see you next time for the episode.